Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Although a rocky start for Auburn on the football field in 2024, the recruiting momentum continues for this program, flipping the commitment of three-star wide receiver Sam Turner from Georgia Tech to Auburn. Now, full transparency to the Auburn fans, I was pretty familiar with Sam Turner's game, was kind of on Auburn's radar going back to the summer months. Was going to wait to do this one on Friday morning, but I thought ain't doing much on Thursday night. Let's take a look at the senior year film that we have from Sam Turner for the Auburn fans. I think there's a lot to be excited about this kid. Now, you go back to the junior year film and say, pretty one dimensional wide receiver, right? 6'1", looks bigger than 6'1" to me on the film. 6'1", 200 pounds, kind of just that vertical presence as a wide receiver, kind of a linear athlete. You turn on the senior year film, and yeah, he still has that vertical presence. This is a big, fast wide receiver. But what stood out to me the most was a little bit more nuance in terms of the snap that he has on his routes, his ability to separate in his route tree. You combine the nuance that he's adding to his route running with the physical traits that this kid brings to the table with a basketball background and say, yeah, I think there's a lot to be excited about. If you're an Auburn fan about Sam Turner, now is he going to be a guy that contributes year one like some of these wide receivers we're seeing in 2024? No, probably not. I think that has a lot to do with just how loaded this wide receiver room is going to be over the next couple of years. But as a wide receiver that you kind of just want to bet on some physical traits and take a look at what it looks like year two, year three, I think Sam Turner's your guy. And I think this is a guy that, most importantly, has seemed to make massive improvements from his junior to senior year. So you love to see kind of the development arc with Sam Turner. Want to get into a little bit of the senior year film, talk about what he brings to Auburn. Now, before we get into it, as always, to the Auburn fans, I can't thank you guys enough for all the support. And although it's been a frustrating season in 2024, y'all continue to show a ton of love to the boys. And it's been y'all know it's been a blast for me talking this program on the recruiting trail. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into Sam Turner. I think you want to start with, it was probably always going to be a light 2025 class at the wide receiver position, considering how much resources and just how much talent that you're brought in 2024. Guys like Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson, Malcolm Simmons, who I think is going to be special, and Bryce Kane. You kind of like the blend that you're getting in the 2025 class. Derek Smith, who I think is awesome to watch, a guy that is, for lack of better terms, a human joystick. Now you're bringing a guy in Sam Turner who I think is going to be a little bit more of that vertical, big bodied, boundary wide receiver presence. And there's a lot to like about that skill set that he's bringing to Auburn, right? 6'1", but again, I think he looks bigger than 6'1". I'm kind of interested to see what he gets listed at for this Auburn program. 200 pounds, not former, but he's a basketball player as well. You can tell this kid's a basketball player. Like when that football is in the air, he seems very comfortable playing above the rim, so to speak, making plays. I don't want to do too much talking, and I do want to spend a little time just diving into what we've seen from the senior year from Sam Turner. I think it starts with, again, we know what he can do vertically, and he's still going to be that vertical. I mean, this kid moves. Like he moves for a bigger bodied wide receiver, tracks the ball really well. Obviously, some of that breakaway speed. Now, you continue to work through the film with Sam Turner. I think what sticks out to me is a little bit more nuance to his route running. Like you go to the junior film, this is kind of primarily what you see. I love this release right here. I mean, again, kind of some quick twitch to him. This is a guy that is a big bodied wide receiver and seems to move really comfortably. Again, tracking the football in the air. That's when he's at its best, like making some of those combat catches. But as I continue to work through this senior year film, what stood out to me the most was his ability to snap some of these routes off and create some separation. Obviously, this defensive back's hips just absolutely lost here, creating some separation over the middle of the field. The movement skills and the route running ability seems to have really improved for Sam Turner. And again, we're going to see him plenty working vertically down the field, which has been there's been a lot of frustration with the Auburn offense. I think one thing you really like is the vertical presence that Auburn's showing, whether it's Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson, Keandre Lambert Smith. These kind of wide receivers seem to really be unlocking this Auburn offense. Gets it done in the run blocking department as well, which is another important aspect. Like Auburn does like to run a lot of stuff to the perimeter. They like to run a lot of screens. Having wide receivers that can get it done on the perimeter from a blocking standpoint, I think that's really important. Again, a little post corner here, really comfortable with the football in the air. I think this is the rep that I want to talk about where you look at Sam Turner here, and I think we're getting to it soon. We're going to get a little celebration first. The next rep that you get from, the next get that you get from Sam Turner right here, like I like this, like the little change of direction here. I mean, his ability to stop the ankle knee flex, I think this stuff is impressive, and obviously creating a ton of separation, making a play. This kid's really intriguing, and it kind of makes sense to me why Auburn suddenly turned the heat up on Sam Turner after getting a little bit of that senior year film on this kid. I think he's a little bit more of a well-rounded wide receiver than we had thought during his junior year. And you take a look at Auburn in 2025, again, it is a absolute house of a recruiting class that I think can get better. Obviously, flipping Naheem Offord probably puts you as one of the best recruiting classes in the country. Again, what continues to stand out for me is one, it's headlined by five-star quarterback Deuce Knight. But when you start scrolling down, and we've talked about this a lot, it's the dedication to the trenches, right? Jared Smith and Jacaleb Falk as edge rushers, guys like Malik Autry, Nathaniel Marshall, Jordan Crawford, Antonio Coleman. I mean, there are so many blue chippers specifically on the defensive line that are coming into this Auburn program. This was Auburn that had to be pretty reliant on the transfer portal to fill in the inside of the defensive line heading into 2024. I don't think Hugh Freeze wants to replicate that. I think Hugh Freeze is always going to use the transfer portal, but I think he wants it to be more of, hey, let's go get a few elite players instead of having to fill in our whole roster through the transfer portal. And I think there was, a certain element of he had to do it because Brian Harsin was just so bad on the recruiting trail. Now you look at Hugh Freeze and say, if we can continue to stack these classes, we don't need to go to the transfer portal and grab 25 players. We're only going to need 10, but those 10 that you're bringing in are going to be much more higher quality players than the 25 that you have to bring in. It's kind of a numbers game, right? You have a certain amount of resources. If you got to go get 25 players, they can't be as high of quality. We've talked about this a lot. We think that Auburn is going to, at least in my opinion, like push their chips into the middle of the table for the 2025 season. I think the bulk of this roster will be back in 2025. I think they're going to go after one of the best quarterbacks in this transfer portal class. And look, if you freeze, it's frustrating. Like losing football games that you shouldn't be losing to teams like Cal, it's unquestionably frustrating. I think every single Auburn fan and every single college football fan that follows this sport understands it's a talent acquisition game at first, and you're seeing Hugh Freeze get that done. Now, you want to see this Auburn team continue to play to their talent level, but at least with what Hugh Freeze is doing on the recruiting trail in the transfer portal, Auburn's going to have a crack at competing at the highest level of the SEC just based on talent alone. Now you want to see it come together. Again, it's frustrating in 2024. I do think this program's going in the right direction. You don't normally see the recruiting success kind of pay dividends on the football field until a year or two after those classes come in. So I expect it to get better. It's been frustrating, but it's nice to see Auburn continuing to have a lot of momentum on the recruiting trail. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later.